Thanks for downloading this episode of the Nerdball Podcast. I'm your host, Lorenzo Melcher, coming to you live from my parents' basement, as always. Still looking for a studio name. I don't know what I'm leaning towards Basement Studios because it's easy, but it's also very generic. So if you could help me out there, just reach me at thenerdballpodcast@gmail.com. All the social medias, same thing, search the Nerdball Podcast. Thank you all for always liking, sharing, subscribing, downloading to the podcast. It really helps it grow. Don't forget about the YouTube page. It hasn't grown, but my son still continues to grow, and at some point he's going to pass me, and I'm going to be very sad. So please hit that subscribe button so my 13-year-old son does not beat me. So if anything, I got to keep making sure I'm better than him, because at some point he's going to be 6'5", and he's going to beat me up. So if I can keep that going for a while, then I'll be happy. So I appreciate all of you. Hope you enjoy the episode.
Hi, I'm Eric Chase, and this is the Nerdball Podcast.
This is the Nerdball Podcast with Lorenzo Melcher.
Perfect, Eric. Thanks for coming on my podcast today.
Sure.
I do have to tell you a story. My 10-year-old daughter asked, "Hey, who's coming on the podcast?" I said, "His name's Eric Chase. He's on the radio." He's like, "Oh, which one?" I said, 105.5. She says, "Oh, okay. Can I come over?" I was like, "If you want to, you can come." I was like, "We're just gonna be in the basement. You're gonna meet him." She goes, "Wait, Ryan Seacrest?" I go, "No, Eric Chase." She goes, "Oh, never mind then." So you had a good morning at my house.
That's not uncommon. And I hope your son comes and kicks your ass now.
Eric, the first thing I always ask people is, what is something you're nerding out about? Something you're really into, whether it's something you've done your whole life or something you just started, just something to get away from your job, something you really enjoy doing.
Just recently, I finished Your Friendly Neighborhood Spiderman. And I was extremely impressed. I know a lot of people had a difficult time with the animation and how they put the episodes out in batches, unlike how Disney or most streamers usually do it, where it's 1 week at a time.
Okay.
It was like 2, 3, 2. But I enjoyed the heck out of it. And as somebody who grew up watching like one of the great Spider-Man shows of all time, or actually I was little enough to remember the early 80s one, but then the 90s one was like an indelible part of my childhood. And while he's not my favorite superhero, it was a really well done show.
What, and is it just, what about Spider-Man? I guess in this particular one, what about it is like, you know what, I'm going to do this? Or is it just because you like all the comic books and you're just part of it?
That mostly. So I'll watch almost any superhero stuff. And I don't know anybody that like dislikes Spider-Man. I think that was kind of the point of the character when it was created. It was supposed to be a less serious alternative to Batman, the darkness of Batman, and the stoic heroism of Superman. Mm-hmm. But I am a Marvel diehard, so I'll watch almost anything. But there was a lot of great voice acting in it. They made some race and gender swaps. Which sometimes can be hard to get used to.
Yeah.
But when I always adjust and adapt, but in this case much faster, maybe because the voice talent was so good, and actually the uniqueness of the animation appealed to me because it was something different. So
okay. Yeah, I enjoy the Marvel movies. I watched some of the shows. My dad was really big. He's big into comic books. He collected them when he was younger, and he really likes all that stuff. And then my son got into it. But I am at the level where I enjoy watching it. It's fun, but I still have to Google, like, hey, all right, who's this villain? Because I don't know enough about all the comics.
You're in your parents' basement. You should have way more comic book knowledge.
That's just not that. But it is fun, and they are fun. And I just had I was talking to someone at work because I was like, oh, I just watched the Deadpool Wolverine movie. And they're like, yeah, I heard that was like a 6 or 7 out of 10. I was like, none of that matters to me. They're all the same because of my knowledge. I think if I had more knowledge, then I'd be more nitpicky about it.
What do you like?
What do I like? I watch anything. I don't rewatch a lot of stuff. Like my dad buys movies. He's stopped now, but he used to buy DVDs and Blu-rays and all that stuff. Right now we're watching Dexter, so I like that. I like a lot of sports too. So my son and I watch a lot of sports. There's nothing I'm like. A couple series I like. I like all the Jurassic Park movies. Those I really enjoy. And then my wife and I would always watch the Saw movies when those came out. But that was more because one of our first dates was a Saw movie for whatever reason. I don't know. And then we just continued to watch them as they came out. But there's nothing I'm like, you know what? I got to be the first to see that or whatever. It just doesn't appeal to me as much. I enjoy going to the movies and watching all that stuff.
What sports teams do you and your son like?
We like the Guardians here. And then my parents are from Texas. So we like the Cowboys and the Spurs in basketball. So... Hey, I got to see Super Bowls. I got to see championships. Now, for him, unfortunately, he has not got to see that. But.
There's I have some friends with some young sons from where I'm from back east in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And I actually told two of these kids, and they were big fans. And I was like, I hate you guys. You guys are like 21st century Patriots fans.
Oh,
you don't know any bad Eagles teams. Mm-hmm. Your son, on the other hand, is the opposite. You could tell him that the Cowboys were once a great franchise, and he would say, "Dad, go back down to your basement."
Yeah, he doesn't get it now. He is into the history of it a little bit, so he does know that. But he loves. That's what I like about it. Like our teams are not good. But he still wants to buy the NBA League Pass so he can watch the Spurs in Wembanyama. He wants to buy the Guardians pass, and we'll probably do that one because at least they're good, you know. But I was like, I can't justify it right now because I'll watch it, but I want to watch them do well, you know. And so I like that he's still invested in it because kids now, you can watch any team anytime as long as your parents are going to pay for it, and you can have fandom all over the country. And that's what I was worried about as he was growing up. I was like, oh, I hope he likes the teams I like. You know, I'm not going to force it on him. As my daughter loves the Bills, so there's nothing. My in-laws are from New York, and she just gravitated towards that. But I like that he still likes it because it to me it means something that he likes a bad team right now. You know, in the hopes of it.
It's either devotion or stupidity.
Yeah, either way. Go Cowboys,
right? Right. How did he get into? He got into the Spurs because your family's from Texas.
Yeah. I've always loved the Spurs, and my dad he'd visit his family back there a couple times a year, and then I'd have him buy jerseys or something, and he'd bring them back, and he has stuff in his room. I mean, there's pennants right behind you. That the same thing. Like my dad would always have these things. He liked buying things and tchotchkes, and now they're up in my basement. At my adult house where I have all these things and he can just look at them and see everything and that's just he just gravitated towards it. And it's part of I know for me I like watching with my dad and now we get to do that.
Right.
It's just a cool thing.
Yeah, I did the same thing with my dad when I became an adult and didn't live at home and I would go visit my dad. Watching games was a thing. My family still lives in Philadelphia and he would often drive out here to visit and I'd be like, Dad, what do you want to do? There's no baseball games to go to. And he's not really a hockey fan. And a lot of the things that we have to do here, he's not he could care less about going to a metro park. Okay. But he's like, if we'll just put a game on. And he likes the heck out of that. And he has gotten to the point where I don't know about your parents, but my dad doesn't really embrace technology. Mm-hmm. If I texted him, I might as well be speaking in Aramaic. But for whatever reason, he will just flip any old game on. He'll ask me if I watched the Thunder Kings game last night. And it's so weird too, because when I was younger, my dad was just all Philly centric. Okay. And it's so weird, I guess, as parents watch us age and we change. I've watched my dad change where he'll ask me if I'm going to put the Guardians Royals game on tonight because it's on the MLB network. And I'd be like, well, no, because I don't watch sports like I used to, but I know what happened. Yeah. So it's kind of, it's still something that I'm adjusting to with my dad asking me if I've watched random games.
My dad doesn't do that. What he does do is if he knows the Guardians lost, he won't watch the replay. But if he knows they won, he'll watch the replay at 3 a.m.
My dad does the same thing. He'll come home from his bowling that he loves, and he will watch past games or in proto dad joke fashion. Years ago, he would try to bet me on ESPN classic games. I'm like, Dad, I'm encyclopedic on this, or I can just look it up.
Yeah. That's funny. So you grew up in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. How long were you there before you decided, I'm out of here?
20 years. It is a vital memory in my life. Yeah. I left in June of '99, so I just turned 20. Okay. And I moved to Detroit.
Okay. And when you were in Philadelphia, were you into I'm assuming you're into sports and comic books and all that stuff too, right? Did you have your buddies that you would either read comic books with or watch sports? Did you have your group of friends that you did all that with?
Much like my adult years, I was not very social back then. My sports were like the teams I played on and things like that. And I never read comic books a lot. I remember being in the drugstore with like a grandparent or something, and they'd have the comic books on the spin shelf, the metal spin shelf, and I remember grabbing them, but I never read them regularly. But I did because of when I grew up. I watched all the shows for sure. So it was cool when X-Men '97 came back to Disney this last year now, because it was it was a Saturday morning when there were Saturday morning cartoons, not Monday through Sunday cartoons, and we called them cartoons, not animated shows. There was 2 times I would get upset and not want to go to my games. My games were always like Saturday sometime, when there was like a continuation of an episode, which was brilliant even back in the 90s. Or I tell my dad, we don't need to go to McDonald's after the game. I want to get home and watch, the X-Men show. Or when some jackass kid invited me to his bar mitzvah, and I'm like, wow, not only am I going to miss my game, this is going to take up the whole day. I'm going to have to sit in a synagogue in a suit. So this sucks.
What would you do because now everything's recorded or everything's just there, you can watch. What would you do if you would miss an episode? You're just devastated for a weekend?
How old are you?
I am 40.
Okay, well, you were screwed.
Yeah.
You'd have to. We were lucky that like a lot of things were in. I was also a big Star Trek fan. So a lot of things were in syndication. So if you missed it on Tuesday night, a lot of times you could catch it Saturday afternoon, because nobody knew how to program their VCR.
Yeah.
And if you did, it was like all static. But no, we were kind of screwed. But the good thing was, not so much was serialized back then. Everything was episodic, which I kind of missed to a degree.
Yeah, because if you missed something, then like, all right, I missed that chunk of 20 minutes or whatever, but it's not going to affect the main storyline or overall everything right away. The one show that I did enjoy is I'm big into Pokemon, and when I was in junior high, about 99, Pokemon was on every morning. So it worked out perfect because there's nothing that was going to stop me from watching Pokemon because it was just school. So I watched it, finished eating breakfast, and then went to school. So I was able to like never miss an episode. And then when those episodes came on, whatever it was, I don't know if it was Netflix or I think Pokemon has their own thing now. And then I got to watch those with my son when he was little. It was like, oh man, it's like all this nostalgia and everything. But I never went through that of like, oh, I'm going to miss this thing because it was mostly sports for me. So I never had to like worry about like, oh, I'm going to miss this thing. Or TGIF, I always got to watch those because what am I? I'm 10. What am I going to do on a Friday night?
There were times I missed games, or there's times I would reconstruct my life to watch games. I recall a lot of times I spent much of my like 10 to 20-year-old years in a skating rink doing a variety of jobs, and I was constantly taking off. Sometimes even Saturdays for playoff games, or like Sundays for like a big Eagles Cowboys game. Yeah. Like I would switch my schedule from like 1 to 6 to 9 to 2, so I could get home to watch the Eagles get stomped in the Kelly green jerseys that everybody likes now, which I have nothing but bad memories of. So yeah, I would rearrange my life for a lot of sports because obviously, I if I missed it, I was never a rewatch kind of person or like tape it. Like I wouldn't watch it as it's happening, as if I was going to hop on Twitter when I was 11 and say I hate Emmitt Smith for the 50,000th time.
Although rewatching something back then or recording it was so much easier because you didn't have social media to spoil anything. You could just sit there and be like, yeah, this is all brand new to me. I know what happened.
There was
3
that.
hours ago. Yeah.
But I was I like lived and died with sports talk radio. There were times where I would make up any like a school sickness and stay home because I wanted to listen about like the March Madness brackets or something like that. So I was always listening to sports talk radio, or my dad was. So I could never evade knowing what happened to a game.
Yeah. Have you, when you were growing up, did you go to sports games like professional?
Yeah, I would say baseball games the most because they were the least expensive.
Yeah. How is Eagles fans as bad as people make it sound?
I would say,
and the only reason to say everybody only hears the worst of the worst. So
it seems like San Francisco has gotten pretty bad from what I've seen. I would say the worst of the worst are probably worse than everybody else's worst. And things were quite unruly at a time because there was actually a a judge in the stadium with a jail cell. I think it was the old stadium, or maybe it was the new one at one point, because things were getting out of hand. And it's always like the smallest minority. That's the case with anything.
Yeah.
The whole reason why we have, police and fire is for like a tiny percent of the population, but they can cause the most havoc. Yeah. The Santa Claus snowballs thing is dumb. Like, it's 60 years ago. There's way more things you can actually...
Is it that long ago now?
Yeah, it was like...
Wow.
Late 60s, I think.
Okay.
There's way more things you can rip Eagles fans for besides that. Like, we've got to modernize the hate towards Eagles fans.
I guess, yeah. Well, would you recommend, as a Cowboys fan, because I have a buddy who, he doesn't live in Philadelphia, but he loves the Eagles. He grew up there as well. And we always talk about it. Would you recommend, if the Cowboys are playing the Eagles, if I go, wear Cowboy stuff?
So here's the thing, and this is where I'm able to compartmentalize my brain. I think you should be able to wear what you want, when you want, how you want, unless it has like a swastika on it or something.
Sure.
But if you're going to wear a Cowboys jersey into an Eagles game, and I'm sure this is the case for many places with
I'm sure Eagles and the Cowboys, right?
Right. Or if you were to wear like a Duke jersey to a UNC basketball game, you're intentionally provoking people. Like, what you're walking into, and I cannot defend you if some drunk idiot decides to beat your ass.
Yeah.
I'm completely against that, and that person should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. But you knew what you were walking into, so don't provoke people.
Especially if, like, because we almost went to the Browns-Cowboys game this year, and that was the same thing. Like, I was debating, like, all right, if I go, can I just go?
You'd be fine there.
Yeah, or like, I'm not, and I wasn't. My son was 12 at the time. I'm not gonna no, don't wear anything. Like, we should be able to be fans, wherever we go.
It's the intensity of the rivalry that causes the disparity. Like, I know in years past, you could probably you can look them up and find them pretty easily. I think there have been a great deal of LA Dodgers, Padres, and Giants parking lot fights where I think sometime in the last 10 or 15 years, someone died or was put into a coma for weeks. So it's the rivalry. Like, I would go all eagled out into a Lions game with no problem or no fear whatsoever. It's the rivalry more than anything.
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, what's your favorite, if you had to pick a favorite Philadelphia sports team?
God, well, I mean, it's easy to pick the Eagles.
Yeah.
My favorite sport at my core was always baseball, because that's what my dad liked most, and we went to the most. It's the sport I was best at as a kid. So I would always say that. But this is kind of weird about me. I don't watch sports anymore. When the Phillies went to the World Series, or they've had a couple of playoff runs the last couple of years, I watched more baseball in 2 weeks than I did in the entire season. Yeah. I don't watch NFL games like I used to, where I used to have the Sunday ticket, and because I bailed on fantasy football, and it was like, it's the greatest, most freeing thing any man could ever do in their life. Like, if you're in a terrible marriage, I would say get out of fantasy football and then see if your marriage is back together. I don't watch, because I can just follow everything on my phone equally, and I can watch other stuff. When I was doing sports talk radio, I remember just being anchored to games from the time I got home to the time I went to bed, and it was freeing to not watch the stuff and to just follow it more for enjoyment now. But I know as much as I ever did. I know way more about games than people who watch the stuff intricately, because I know where to look and who and what to read, and the sophisticated ways that we grade and watch games these days.
Would you say because you don't watch as much sports, is that a time thing, or is it because your time at sports radio, you're like, you know what, I don't have to do this, so I'm not going to?
It's both. Like, I could have watched the hockey game the other night, the USA-Canada game, where we were going to figure out if we were going to be a province or they were going to be a state. But I just wanted to watch Law & Order instead, because at Law & Order, I can like half watch and keep an eye on the game on my phone.
Yeah. I don't watch as much sports. My son does, but for me, it's all right. What's better right now for my life? Should I sit and watch this game, or should I really get on editing this podcast that it's going to take me an hour and a half to do, or do I need to do something for work that I didn't finish up, or like all these things where a game is fun. And I think what I've gotten really good at is kind of doing what you did with Law & Order. I can put the game on and still do these things And also when our TV time with my wife and I, it's 9:00 and after, and I get up at 5:15 for work. So I have a little bit of time where we decide like, what are we going to do? And I'm not going to make my wife watch some sporting event, you know?
What takes you so long to edit the podcasts?
Because the video.
Got it.
The video, I basically have to watch the entire podcast because on my software I can switch back and forth.
Right.
So that's what I have to do.
Got it.
Which is like I can edit an audio thing in 10 minutes, right?
Right.
You know, right? So like, but I just like the video portion of it. It's fun. That's how I can make my TikToks and reels and all that kind of stuff, shorts for YouTube, and it's fun and I like it. And you know, it's just another avenue for people. Some people like to watch it. My parents do, but I think that's just because I'm their son,
Right?
You know, but I don't. It's fun. I like the video part. It is a lot of work, and there was times where like, should I just not do this anymore? But
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's one of the reasons why my stuff is not video centric at all, because of the exhaustive work that goes into it. Even though, like you said, there's lots of places where you can use it, but I don't like watching videos. Like period. So when I was reading something last week that said that like YouTube is the second biggest podcast used platform, I'm like, God, because people just put it on and listen in the background. I'm like,
yeah.
And I get that, but like I just don't like watching things. If somebody sends me a video, I'm like, can you just send me the article, please?
Before I did video, my podcast was still on YouTube. It was just the logo,
right?
And then it just played, so it was still on there. I just added video.
Mine did that too when I was using Podbean to upload.
Yep.
It was great because they would snag like one out of every 5 or 10 episodes and do just that. Take the logo and put it up there. But nobody ever watched it, and I didn't push it because I'm thinking, who would want to watch this when there's nothing to watch? But apparently I was missing an opportunity because people like to sit and listen while something could be watched.
It is a weird thing because there's so many things that are just audio that why would you pick YouTube that's for your eyes to listen to something? But people do, you know?
Yeah, because I think most people do listening while they're driving and or working. Mm-hmm. And depending on what you do, like you can't watch while you're listening. Or watch while you're working. So it's like, hey, dumbass, this is on Spotify. Like you don't have to open YouTube. You don't have to pay for YouTube to kick the commercials out or to close out when your screen goes black. You can just listen on an audio app.
Yeah, and well, even Spotify has video now. You put your thing on there, and it is impossible. I figured it out, and I tried to put a video on there, and it said you need to have separate audio and video files in order to do it. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. Like, how do I?
You're uploading a lot of stuff.
Yeah, how do I create that? I was like, I'm just not going to worry about it. If someone wants to see me interview someone, they can go to YouTube.
So does that mean you have to upload the audio and the video with the audio, or the video without the audio, and they'll sync it?
I have no idea. I looked into it a little bit, and I messed with it once or twice on my software to try to see if I can figure it out. I did a couple different things. It still didn't work. I'm like, all right, I'm done then. Spotify, you can host my audio, but that's all I need from you.
I get it.
So you said you left Philadelphia when you were about 20. Before that, obviously, you were in high school. What would you get into when you were in high school? You played sports. You said you did baseball, right?
Sleeping.
Typical high school stuff.
I actually wanted to get to homeroom because I could go back to sleep. I was never a morning person.
Okay. Did you like high school besides getting there to sleep?
Not really. Like, it's weird when I hear kids, like, good for them, but it's weird when I hear kids say, like, during COVID, like, they missed school and their friends and learning. I'm like, good God, I would have killed to have, like, a non-lethal plague when I was in high school. I didn't like school. I could have done a lot better at it. I was like a B student, and I easily could have done a lot more. Same. But I was asleep half the time. Mm-hmm. I was just tired. I was not a morning person, and obviously school was in the morning. Half the day was in the morning.
Yeah.
I would at times intentionally disrupt one particular teacher's class because I knew that it was a ticket to go sit out in the hallway where I could be left alone. Was terrible at math.
Me too. I could never do it. I'm glad my kids excel at math, and I'm so glad.
I mean, and now they can just look it up or have their phone do it. But I was good enough at math, but once they started involving letters in like 11th grade, I'm like, I'm out. Mm-hmm. I'm done. Thank God I only needed to do like 3 years of math. So school was, and my dad would always tell me, he's like, you're going to miss these days. And he was right, but I missed it more so because like I didn't have bills and the day was a lot shorter and less responsibility. So in that regard, he was extremely correct.
Just not the school part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if I could just go there and if I meander the hallways or anything, or sit in the lunchroom all day, or just find a place to go to sleep, it would be great.
Did you have, speaking of lunch, did you have like the thing that everyone always wanted at lunch, and if you were late, it sold out? Do you remember that?
So for most of my high school years, there was obviously the cafeteria, and my school was very. Where'd you go to high school?
Perrysburg.
Okay. So my school was basically Whitmer.
Okay.
Extremely diverse, and I think there was 2,500 kids in the school.
Okay.
And our graduating class was like 500 or 600, so it was a massive school. So the cafeteria was huge. That's where all the best fights were. They would keep them contained. The aides would be like, instead of spilling out in the hallway, can you just keep it in the lunchroom?
Yeah.
So I went to our mentally gifted office, classroom, room. It was kind of like it was in everything. It was a classroom. It's where the teachers' desks were, where they were during breaks, not in classrooms. It was like a social area. You can go use the computers there. And they had, every day they would bring in Philadelphia soft pretzels that was like put on the size of like this table. And if you there was like some days my schedule wouldn't take me there until later on, and I would miss or get the crappy pretzels. So because we had some good stuff in the lunchroom. They offered like hoagies and reasonably good pizza.
Yeah.
And some good fries that if you put enough salt on for a week, they would taste good. But I just ate like soft pretzels every day.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, that's you know what? That's like, it seems like a high school kid diet though. Like, here's my
sure.
thing, pizza rolls or chicken sandwiches or whatever. Like, this is the thing, and this is what I'm gonna eat. You know?
It was great foresight into my future. I sat with some misfit outcast type kids for this lunch, and we would often play chess.
Okay.
Which it was just to really pass the time. And these kids weren't even like my best friends. Like they were friends. We'd play ball together and stuff, but not nearly like I would never hang out with them on the weekends.
Okay.
But it was just a thing that we did, maybe because we were all like introverted outcasts and didn't want to be in the regular lunchroom or anything.
So did you go there like on your own, or were you told to go there? That
I went there on my own.
Okay.
I mean, that's where the pretzels were.
Yeah. Okay.
And I had a lot of classes. It was like an annex area in addition to the school. I had a lot of classes there.
Okay.
And all the mentally gifted teachers, I had most of them. So they were like cool teachers. Before cool teachers, well, they were cool in like a teacher way.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like they were very like emotionally open and understanding, and they wanted to help you with things. Not some strict ruler smacking teacher that just simply wanted to get you to an F as fast as possible. Like these people, like if there was something wrong, they would want to address it with you and help you.
So I coach high school football at Perrysburg, and I've coached it for 15 years now. And like, that's my favorite part of, like, I love the football part of it, sure. But my favorite part is connecting as much as I can. And, once I do, like I open up a little bit and let them know, like my brother passed away from a drug overdose, and my mom was alcoholic for a while. She's been sober for a long time now. Like all these things that don't necessarily come up in conversation, but if I can sneak them in there, then it kind of like lets them know, like, oh yeah, this coach has been through some things, and maybe he can help me when I'm trying to figure out this little thing here, and it's that's if I can try to connect, like that's my favorite thing to do.
We didn't have that growing up. Like I was almost kind of scared of my high school baseball coach. And he had the right to drill into me for some things, but he was never a person that I like wanted to hang out with or anything like that. He never, I found out when I was playing, I found out later on, maybe the only regret in my life is I was too stupid to realize that I should have been wearing my glasses while playing baseball. Like I was tall and my last name started with W, so I was always in the back of the class.
Okay.
So I couldn't see anything. And that, I never put two and two together and did that on the baseball field. And I look back and go, oh, I should have had better vision then. So he's right to drill into me. But that guy and so many other teachers, like they didn't care about your social well-being. I mean, they were nice enough people. And maybe some were funny or jovial, but they would never very few would pull you aside and go like, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
Oh, didn't Mommy beat Perrysburg for the first time in like 30 years this past year? In football?
No, we haven't played them. We stopped playing them.
That's right. Who did Mommy beat for the first? Was it? God, this is gonna bug me now. Maybe it was just that they were good again, not losing.
No, because they were for like 3 years. I feel like they hadn't won a game.
Yeah,
and then a new coach, Evan, I think, came in, and he's been doing really good with that program, and to the point where, we don't know when, but at some point we are gonna play each other again. It just doesn't benefit Perrysburg because we're Division 1 and they're Division 3 or 4.
Right.
So points, like computer points and all that stuff, doesn't benefit us that much. But everyone wants to see it again.
Right.
You know, it's fun.
Maybe
it's a
they're
cool thing,
not that they're spring scrimmage or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure they talked about that kind of stuff too. Just something to be like, hey, why don't we try something because these two communities used to be a rivalry.
Do like a JV or backups game, because you talked about computer points and everything is like money driven. Do like a fundraising game or something?
So, yeah,
backups.
Yeah, I think it'd be great. I think it's such a cool community thing, you know. Because I remember, I went to Perrysburg, I lived through it, I coached it, you know, all this stuff, and then it stopped, which helped us. Is before it even stopped, our rival changed to Anthony Wayne. So we already had that. So when it stopped, I was like, all right, I guess we're not playing for this bell anymore. But now we have this other game we're dealing with anyway.
There was 2-3 years ago, I got invited to. They were bringing in a lot of mental health speakers to the football team and to the athletes, and literally like moments before I started to talk to them, and I just assumed, Mommy, big school, they're probably pretty good, and like literally moments before I went to talk to these kids about like emotional well-being and things like that, I'm like, oh, you guys haven't won in like 3. I think I actually said, I hear you guys suck. Maybe not quite as like terse as that, but it was like, here you guys are having a great year. So I was like, no wonder why they're bringing in like mental well-being for you guys, because you haven't won in 3 years.
I can't fathom like going through that. Like sure, there's ups and downs, and you know, my junior year we were 9-1, and then my senior year we were 2-8. Like it sucks, but to like be in high school for 4 years and win 5 games, like that's not fun.
No, I don't know how they kept the football program going with kids. I guess kids just wanted to play out of habit or whatever. Because imagine being like a sophomore and getting in there as the losing streak is beginning.
Yeah,
that doesn't do anybody any good.
And you already lose your best players at St. John's. Like those kids are already gone. So like it is just, well, I'm gonna do it for Mommy. Let's go, guys.
Right.
You know, and they're better.
What was it like? So you graduated in what, like 2003 or 4?
Yep, 3.
What was it like having darker skin color than all the other kids?
I never pointed out, like I never thought about it that much. When I grew up in Toledo, I lived in Toledo for 14 till I was 14. I went to real small Catholic school, very diverse. I only had 13 kids in my 8th grade. Then I moved to Perrysburg as a freshman, and I made really good friends my whole freshman year, and they're all white.
That was probably going to be a good chance at Perrysburg anyway.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I didn't like is like people would just assume things, right? Because that's what people do. They just assume like, oh, you live over here, or you're friends with these people, or whatever. It's like, well, no, these are my friends, and this is where I live, and my parents, you know, they do a good job and all that stuff. As I got older, I paid more attention to it. And a thing I do now, it's whenever I go somewhere new, I look in the crowd to see if I see any other minorities. We go to Ida every year. My daughter twirls, but
there's no minorities.
Look around. They have, you know, this giant parade. You know, 10% of the parade are Trump floats. You know, like, so I go, but it just makes me. I get a little bit more of awareness. Like, all right, now I've been there like 5 times now, so it's a little less. But growing up, I think it was my parents in their mind, like we aren't going to bring attention to this, because we grew up where if we said anything, we'd get in trouble, or we get hit, or we get beat up, you know. And so it wasn't something I focused on. But with my best friends, we did talk about it. They would make fun of me, or I'd make fun of them, that kind of stuff, you know, because that's what best friends do, and they're still my friends 20 years later. Right. So I didn't think about it in school as much, but now with my kids, I do talk about it, because I want them to be proud, and I want them to know all this stuff. And, you know, my dad thinks it's a weird thing that my brother and I used to wear like stuff like a Mexico shirt or a hat. He goes, man, I would hide all that stuff. So it is different now, and I think he likes that we show that.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
The one thing that there might be more, but the one thing that always jumps out to me that I dislike about living here is it's the least diverse place I've ever lived and worked. Now, granted, I've worked in a lot of big places, and the bigger the place, the more diversity.
Yeah.
But I always say, and I am not bashful about this, it's not criticism, it's observation, especially relative to my life. But there's black people and white people here. There's a smattering of Asian people. There's a smattering of Hispanic people. From my perspective, while this isn't necessarily ethnicity, there's 2,000 Jewish people here. So it's not diverse, and it's kind of weird when I go to places, if I go home or if I go up to Detroit, or go see somebody down in Columbus. I'm like, what's that smell? Like, what? Something's different. I'm like, oh, it's diversity. Oh, it's different colored skin of people, and we just don't have it, and it's totally fine. And I can't say that there is rampant racism here. Not that I would experience it. And any kind of it's not racism. If somebody were to think that they were having that at them, I think it's more just ignorance.
Correct.
I always joke with some friends, being Jewish, I can finally relate to all of my minority and racially diverse friends, where you go a place and there's somebody here who's like never met an actual Indian person.
Yeah.
Here I've got the same thing. Like, I've had people say, like, I've never met a Jewish person before. I'm like, did you expect me to have a bigger nose or? And I'm just teasing them. They're being ignorant because they've never, it's like when you don't know a language, you don't know how to speak it. So it's interesting in that regard. I don't like it because I like diversity and the difference of perspectives. And sometimes I like when we hate things about our past, or you just learn new and wild things about people and how they grew up. But that is certainly lacking here.
Yeah, and I work for the Metro Parks, and I am the supervisor at Glass City Metro Park.
How have I not run into you before then?
I don't work nights, so when you go there, when you go there for your DJ things, I'm not there. I'm very much more of an office worker now since I'm the supervisor, which I'd like to be more out. But I thought that too. Like, we haven't seen each other out there, but I like being there, and I think it's important that I'm there as a supervisor because I'm Hispanic, and because if most of our other parks are in the suburbs of Lucas County. There's a lot in the suburbs. So I like being there, and I like being the person there and the face of that, for lack of a better term, because we do get a lot of different types of people there, and some more diverse people. And it's good to like walk around and tell them, like, yeah, I'm the supervisor. You need anything, let me know, all this kind of stuff. It's just cool.
When you say diverse, can you expound on that?
So I think because of the popularity of that park now, it brings people, like, I've met people from different countries that heard about the park when they're in town. They're like, I'm gonna go check it out because now it is the most popular metro park.
Yeah.
So I get to experience that, not necessarily the people that live there, right, but the people that are visiting, and I want to like show them, like when I talk to them, I want to be able to show them, like, this is a cool park.
You want to mislead them that we're really diverse here in Toledo. No, that I'm glad you verified that, and I've heard that before. That since it's open, it's drawn people from outlying areas. Like, it makes Toledo a mini destination for a day drive rather than just Mud Hens games. Because I know the park, I read recently that most people that go through there are East Siders. And I think that's like good and bad when they see someone of color, because they know that in a lot of ways they're marginalized. But I also know there's a lot of people on the East Side who probably hate seeing people who aren't white as well. And I know that you also draw, when I've done my events and things like that, and I've been there, like, I see a lot of black families there. Like, clearly inner city, probably closer to poverty than anything, but they get to just run under the splash pad and things like that. And that's what that is what makes the metro parks way better than there being a park 5 miles from anywhere. It's that they've created more than just trees and so many more things for families who can't afford to pay to go to Sky Zone or whatever to come do for free.
And that's the thing too. When people visit from out of state, they're like, this is amazing. We get to do it for free, because I didn't realize this, but there are a lot of parks that you got to pay to go into, and it is a wild thing. I'm like, have at it.
And
it's fun.
It's really free for them because they're not paying local taxes. Like, it's super duper free.
It's extra free.
Right.
We're paying you.
But it's great to see people talking about it. And ever since I heard the word Riverwalk, have you guys been? You've been to San Antonio, right?
I have, yeah.
So
Yeah,
I know
big
it's a little different from what they're developing here, but that's the most famous Riverwalk in the country.
Correct.
And the fact that we're going to have something somewhat similar to that once this is all finished, like to imagine it. I used to live downtown, so I would go to Middle Grounds a lot with my dogs. And they could have just done that and let it alone. But the fact that they've woven in the whole circle, and to think that Riverwalk will go from Middle Grounds all the way down to near the bridge with Glass City, and then across. I mean, just how big. I don't think people here can't envision what this is going to be like, and it's going to be absolutely amazing.
I'm excited just to be part of the Metro Parks, but to be there because it's all the growth, and I get to see the plans and the drawings and all the renderings of like, this is what we want, and be involved in like, all right, because now we have International Park. And I got to be involved, like, all right, what are you guys envisioning here? We had a whole, 2.5 hour meeting on, what we're doing and all these different activities and everything. And it is a cool thing. And I love every time my friends visit, hey, make sure you go to the park. I can get you some, if it's during winter, I can get you some skating passes. There's all these things to do. It's just a cool thing. And especially in that neighborhood, being there on the east side, because we took over Ravine Park, one of the ravines, and built a new playground there. And to hear all the people come and say, like, man, this is awesome. My kids love it. And we know that parents drop their kids off at that playground and just let them play, to have all these safer spaces for them. It's really cool. And again, the growth is what I'm excited about.
I got pretty close with the East Toledo Family Center. They called me an honorary East Sider. I'm like, no, no, not, and I don't say that in a bad way, but I don't deserve that. And as things picked up with Glass City and the pedestrian bridge was built, they were asked to be involved in the ribbon cutting stuff. I was like, I told their leadership there, I'm pretty close to the Metro Parks, have good relationships with them. So please let me know if they're not including you with things, because you are the social, financial, and so many other leads of the East Side, that building, that East Toledo Family Center, which is kind of behind the murals with the grain elevators. They're a hub of everything there in so many ways. They were there's no library over there, so they have books. They have a health center. It's a community center. And if that place weren't there, I don't know how much further down the east side could have gone. But I love the fact that they're being included in the vision for everything with the Metro Parks and all things east side, because they deserve it. They were the backbone of the neighborhood for such a long time.
Yeah, they're a big partner with us. They use our building to the enrichment center that we have there. That's where our offices are at. They use that building. And Gary Lenhart, who is a huge volunteer for us, he runs One Voice on the east side, and he holds his once a month meetings there. And so we are very much tied, as much as a lot of the Metro Parks are, hopefully tied to that community, and any help we can get from the people that actually live there, we'll definitely take, because we are moving in, building this park for them. So what's the best thing to do for them? And they're a big help for us. I really like working with them. What the dog park? You went there with your dogs. You said you used the dog park. When I became a supervisor for downtown, this is probably 2.5 years ago. The dog park, of all the stuff, that is the thing that gives me the most headaches. And it's not the fact the dogs or the park.
It's the people. It's the owners.
Yes, yeah,
I get that.
They get mad when it's shut down.
Yeah.
And luckily for us, the Middle Grounds Dog Park Facebook page is 90% on, for us. So if someone's in there complaining, there's 5 people saying, nope, they're doing it because this, that, or the other, and all this kind of stuff. So I never thought I had to put so much effort into that. I think we're in a good space now, but it was at first it was wild,
predictable. And I remember even back then, I was like, this is not because I think Glass City Dog Park just turned 10, or it'll be 11 this year. So it's a couple years older than Middle Grounds Metro Park. But I remember at the time thinking, "Oh, this is free. That's going to create some headaches, just like that and beyond."
Yeah.
And dogs could be poorly behaved. They could have illnesses because they're not vaccinated and whatnot. And it's probably a long shot that most people are responsible dog owners.
So. But
it's a risk that the Metro Park certainly took, that you found out about maybe in some ways. I'm sure, have there been dog violence incidents there over the years?
Not maybe 1 or 2 a year. Nothing nothing that stands out where it's like, man, this is a problem. We really got to take care of this.
Like this person can't come anymore.
Yeah, I've never heard about that. If there's any big things, they'll contact the Rangers and they'll let me know. But I haven't heard anything about that. But that Facebook page is pretty active, so they'll post stuff on there. But it's not terrible. The biggest complaints, it was always just like, why is it closed?
Why would it be closed? For weather reasons?
Weather, yeah.
Because it was all muddy or something?
We try to prevent it from getting muddy. So when it's wet, we close it. If it doesn't freeze for a while at the beginning of winter, it's closed because it just stays, especially if it's had snowed and then thaws. So that is mostly it, because if it's closed or if it's open during those times, then at some point in the summer we're gonna have to close it for a longer time to make sure the grass grows back good. So it's
like we just talked about insuring people who maybe can't afford things, giving it to them for as low cost or no cost as possible. I don't like when people complain about free things. I don't care how poor you are.
Yeah, it is. And people have said that too. Like, hey, you can go to this other place. You got to pay this. It's free here.
Yeah.
Like, why? You know.
So my dog is probably the only one that caused an incident there, but it was an incident for me. So when I was out of work in like 2017 and 2018, I had all day, and me and my dogs would walk like crazy all over downtown. I don't know if was it just maybe I just had the one. When did Middle Grounds open?
2017. Maybe earlier. Okay. I wasn't there yet, so it's hard to.
So I have two dogs, but I only remember one of them being with me for this. Can't think where the other one. Maybe he was running around somewhere. So he was on the smaller dog side. He's medium sized, not big by any means. And my friend and her dog, a golden doodle, were on the big dog side. And my dog does not socialize well with people. Yes, with other dogs, not necessarily. So the two were running back along the fence with one another, and they were clearly angry with one another. It wasn't playful by any means. So I called my dog. I called him over to me, and there's blood everywhere. Everywhere. And I knew what happened immediately. I think he got his nose caught. But there was blood everywhere. I'm like, what do I do? I was thinking it was like a spring day, so I had sweatpants on over shorts. So I'm like, I'm gonna have to take my pants off and like hold his nose from all this blood.
Yeah.
It was a wild incident, and that's when I was like, all right, you know what? Their socializing will be with humans and not dogs. But it was something.
Could you see like a big gash or something on his nose?
No, that was the problem. But I could tell where he was bleeding from.
Yeah.
I mean, dogs' noses are really soft, and he must have caught it on something on the fence. But you would have thought that there was a murder. Like they should have called. They should have called the Dexter people.
Yeah,
because it was everywhere, and I was freaking out. Not because I was concerned. He was fine. It's like if you cut your head or something, or a place that bleeds easily.
Yeah.
Like you're fine, but the blood just won't stop. It was that.
It looks way worse than it is. Yeah.
Right. But it's an awesome place. I wish I had time to go down there more.
Yeah, I really like it there. I always love talking to the fishermen. There's a couple guys that always go on TikTok live down there, and I've been on a couple of theirs, just randomly showing up. I talk to them.
Are they the cat fishermen?
I don't know exactly. I know there's some people that used to go to International Park, but they don't go there because they can't night fish there anymore since we took it over.
I used to see a bunch of people when I would walk near Owens Corning, between Owens and where Ford Industry Square is. You'd have a bunch of like old black guy cat fishermen.
Yeah.
They just be hanging out, chilling, listening to like some classical jazz or something like that, some old blues, and they're just hanging. They'd be there every day.
Yep. They're there now at the volleyball courts at International Park. They're there just, I don't know, there's probably on any day 10 to 20 people that are just there fishing. I'm like, man, what a life. Good for you.
Have you ever fished before?
I'm not a big fisherman.
Yeah, my dad tried to get me into them when I was a kid in our park system back home. I was like, this is terribly boring. Like, you telling me you just have to sit here and wait?
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather
do anything else.
Wake me up when something catches. And we never caught anything either.
Oh, yeah. See, I've gone a couple times when my son was little. He's not into it anymore. And we would catch little bluegills or whatever, so he liked it. But I didn't like it enough to like, all right, let's keep going, because it I don't know, it just doesn't do it for me. Every time I wanted to do it, I had to like buy new things because I had no idea where old fishing poles went.
And the other strange thing, which I didn't even realize till we were older, I was just so dismayed with having to do it. We didn't even eat fish. Like, we were probably going to throw them back.
Yeah. Just for sport. What do you have a favorite Metro Park?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, Glass City, but when you guys talk about it, is do you talk about Glass City like it's on an entirely different level? Are you familiar with like Detroit at all?
Not really. Mm.
So there's your regular malls, and then there's I think it's Sunset or something. I forget what the name, but it's where all the designer stores are.
Okay.
Or it's super expensive. It's really massive. It's a destination.
Yeah.
It's not just a place where and I'm talking about like in the 90s and 2000s, like your run of the mill mall with JCPenney and stuff like that. Like it's the nice mall. In fact, there's a nice side. Like they would almost not let they wouldn't let us go to that side of the mall. I've seen malls like this where there are armed guards. Do you guys talk about Glass City like that?
So that is the thing I hate the most. When we we have a supervisor meeting once a month, and like at some point I had to like stand on my soapbox and tell all the other supervisors, because that's for them. They say like, "Oh, Glass City gets everything," or "Glass City gets all the money," this, that, and the other. Which we don't. Like we get the money for the construction because we're constructing new things.
Yeah.
But so at one point I go, "Look, guys, I'm tired of you guys saying Glass City is different. We have trails like you. We have restrooms like you. We have playgrounds like you. We have all the same stuff." And then I do say things like, I can't help that we are the most popular now. I can't help that. But it was such a thing for a year that I couldn't, like, it was so frustrating because they would just like all these things like, oh, they're going to get a new person, or they're going to get more budget money, or they're going to get all, even after our finance team went to every like region, it's like, all right, here's finance. Look, so Glass City gets this money, not any more than anybody else or whatever, And so it was very frustrating because even after that, they're like, we don't believe them. Like, well, I don't know what to do then, guys.
You have a ribbon and nowhere else does. I'm sorry. Like you're just gonna have to bite this bullet.
Look, I get it. I get that we're different. What I didn't appreciate is that they are assuming all these things that aren't to be true. So then they get mad at us. Like, I don't know what to tell you guys. Like we're still a park. I get it. But yes, we have a ribbon. We have other things. But that doesn't make it okay to say we get more than you.
Sure, it does. Yeah. I mean, it's classism, but in the Metro Park style. You've also got Poco, and then the other places have Poco. Like, I'm not getting pizza like that at Sidecut. And you know what? To be quite frank, Sidecut and Wildwood needed to be knocked down a peg. They were way too egotistical. Like, by far, they were the two most popular parks. Mm-hmm. You put tree houses and oak openings, and they weren't still as popular as Sidecut and Wildwood. So they needed to be knocked down a peg. So you can tell them that at the next meeting. Like you say, Eric said your ego is out of control.
And that is the one, and I will take that because when we see, because I can email to get the visiting numbers, and because
you're tracking people's phones.
Because yes, we are. It is 100% we are. Not mine though, because it knows that I go there every day, so
right.
I don't get tracked.
This guy really likes our parks.
So I get those numbers, and I do. I will email every once in a while. I'm like, hey guys, here are the updated numbers, just so you guys know we're better than everybody else. So, because we are.
Yes, I am just a slightly upper middle class Swan Creek goer.
Oh, okay. That was our first house. Was as a married couple, we lived over in South Toledo, over by UTMC. And we would go there at this time, we just had my son who was real little. But I really enjoyed Swan Creek. It was fun, especially during COVID when we lived here. But during COVID, when I wasn't working, like I'd visit a lot of the Metro Parks, and the kids liked Swan Creek. Really, really nice too.
And it might be, you tell me, is it the most like park-ish of all the parks? Like you could put it in any city and people would like it and go, this is a nice park?
I think so, because it has so many different things. Like I know one thing some of my staff doesn't like about Glass City is there's no trees. Like, okay, it's a brand new park,
right?
Because so it doesn't feel like a park because of the trees, right?
Right, it's very desolate.
Yeah. But like Oak Openings, it's just all woods and trees.
Right.
Now there's different little areas there too, but I think you're right in the fact like Swan Creek has playgrounds or rental facilities, and then you can go into woods, and there's a creek running through.
The amenities are small and quaint, and they're not the draw of the park. Mm-hmm. The creepy animals are.
Creepy animals.
So when I used to wake up early to go to work, I live behind where Fridays was.
Okay.
I'd go over to where UTMC is, and I would literally see deer in the middle of the airport near Starbucks and Reynolds. Like those deer were street deer. Like they were bold. I have deer in where I live, and there's some wooded areas, but I see way too many deer for the amount of trees that are in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And these things are massive. Like I'm laying on my couch and I see the deer walking outside, and sometimes I'll go outside and peek at them just to look at a little wildlife.
Yeah.
Like that looks like a dragon. Like that thing comes up to my shoulder.
Yeah.
And they have
No predators.
Right. They have no fear.
Yeah.
My friends would always tease me when I would tell them about the animal stories, where I see now they're like, you're like a Disney princess. Because we don't have pigeons here, do we? Do you know what a pigeon is? You don't?
No, I do, but there might be more doves than we have pigeons. I see pigeons.
Really?
Not all the time.
Right.
Not probably not as much as like a big city.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's so strange. Maybe we should import some. But I didn't even see pigeons downtown. Also, like those are like city birds.
Yeah.
Like they don't care.
Yeah.
They will run you off the road.
We have a lot of spider and lanternfly downtown.
I know. Was that thing near the Tower on the Maumee legit where they were like piled up?
I've never seen it, but I can see why, because I went downtown one time last summer and they were everywhere. So I can see somebody probably sweeping a sidewalk or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a couple. They had just made it out my way, like last year, and I went to kill one. I was doing my civic duty to kill one.
Yeah.
And those motherfuckers are fast.
Very fast. Isn't it wild? I feel like you think you got it and it somehow gets out of
Yeah,
it.
I like grasshopper fast. I was better prepared the next time. But to go back to the pigeons,
Yeah.
like there's no wildlife downtown except for I think they're geese.
Yeah.
The geese would come up from like International Park or by Owens, and they'd scare the shit out of my dogs. Like they were nasty creatures.
Did you ever see deer at Middle Grounds?
I've not.
Yeah, there's big deer at Middle Grounds.
Did they move there? Because what did they do before Middle Grounds was there?
I don't know, but they're there. Turkeys too. There's turkeys there.
My friend is he's a wildlife film documentarian. So when I have an animal question, I usually hit him up, and he told me that there's a metro park, a tiny metro parks preserve near the Amazon on Reynolds, right, where there's turkeys. You have some property over there?
Yes.
Yeah, and he said, he's like, there's South Toledo turkeys, and like, turkeys don't live in the city. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it's Brookwood, I think. But yeah, there's turkeys there. Even Manhattan Marsh. I don't know if you've ever been to Manhattan Marsh.
I've not.
That is a really cool park. It's one circle around a marsh. It's really cool. But there's big deer there too that my staff would take pictures, and like there's like these big hunters. My boss is a big hunter, and he just salivates over that giant deer. That's
Likes killing Bambi, does he?
He does a lot of things.
We should give Bambi a gun.
See what happens. He does look like Elmer Fudd a little bit.
I've seen a variety of like different animals and creatures, but nothing weird. I don't think anything weird. There, the raccoons, but not uncommon. I think a lot of gophers.
Yeah.
Until a couple months back, and maybe you saw me post about it. I saw it out of the corner of my eye. I'm watching TV sometime in December, I think, and it was in the middle of the day, and I see this bird, and it was in the corner of my eye. So I'm immediately thinking, not unusual for animals to think that they own my back area, but this thing kept walking up. So I have a small, 8x10 wooded deck out my back door, and this thing. And it's not unusual for animals to go up there because I'll often put like peanuts and stuff out for the squirrels and the dive bombing cardinals. But this thing walked up, and I was looking over at this point. This thing walked up on the deck, and it didn't stop. It walked up to the glass door, and no one, I don't think, has definitively told me what it is. But it was something akin to it was a black turkey.
Okay.
I was told it was a female, and this thing was ballsy. Like I said, this thing looked into my home like it was going to rob me. I didn't know what to do. I think my dogs were kind of taken aback.
Yeah.
And it kept hanging around the area. Now, it does have some kind of fear because I've seen it walk away a couple times and walk towards the street and then go scurrying back to wherever it came from. One time, it flew up on top of the condo building across the way, and it took up like this gargoyle type position. I've not seen it recently, which is good because it's a little not scary, but it's like it's concerning. Like, is this thing going to attack me? Like, what happens if I like open the glass door for the screen door in the springtime? Is this thing going to walk into my? Am I going to find it in the kitchen? But I've never seen any bird like this in my entire life.
You said you posted about it?
Yeah, a black turkey.
I'll have to. Someone on my staff is a huge birder. And I've shown him
Nate.
pictures. Nate Kosicki.
Nate Kosicki. Yeah, he always comes by to talk. I bring him by every year to talk about
that's right,
Bird Week.
Yeah,
he probably thinks I'm way too fascinated with it, but I think what he knows about birds is awesome. And I asked him when I first met him, I was like, how big of a loser do your friends think you are?
I love it. I know anytime I need, like, hey, this weird bird. My dad sent me a picture of a bird in Texas one time. And he's like, hey, my dad's never seen this. And he looked at it and he was like, oh yeah, that's this thing. I'm like, God, that's wild, man. That's wild.
I don't think he could definitively tell me what had flown or what had come up to my door. I did ask him one time. I hate winter and I cannot wait for warmer weather. But there's one thing I absolutely despise. I will keep my bedroom window open so I get some air in.
Yeah.
These birds are up at like 4:15 in the morning. I don't wake up. I usually get up sometime in the 6 o'clock hour.
Yeah.
But they're up in like the 4 o'clock hour. And what did he? I think he told me that they're house sparrows.
Okay.
And I think he also told me that they are like an invasive species. And like, you're goddamn right they are. They invade me every day at 4 o'clock. They when I go out every morning at the end of my driveway, they're perched on the neighbor's tree, and birds sing, I guess, but these sing, these are probably rapping like gangster lyrics. There's like dozens of them on this tree. I will walk really close to it. They don't back off. Like, for an adorable looking bird, they're badasses.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to continue bird talk, but I want to get you out of here on time. Next time we can talk more birds.
No. Bring Nate in. I do have one thing to throw at you. You had asked me why I was looking for podcasts.
Yeah.
So I, for years on mine, when it comes to concerts downtown, and I've always been critical of all the concerts that we bring here because it's all country. Whatever. I get it. You make money. Good for you. And there's a lot of people who like country. I have joked that the venue that was created at Promenade Park was so nice that, like, if it was a nice, warm evening and there was alcohol, I could do my podcast up on that stage and there'd still be people in that park. Yeah. So I guess, I don't know how I stumbled onto it, but now I'm going to put my money where my mouth is.
Okay.
Actually, there's no money involved, so it's simply figurative. I am endeavoring to put on a podcast fest.
Oh, yeah.
At Promenade Park sometime this summer. So that's why I was looking for area and regional podcasts.
Yeah.
And as I suspected, many of them suck because most podcasts suck.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. And even if I weren't hypercritical, I would say this is not good. Like, there's one guy I listened to. His mic was on for 3 minutes, and he had started the show, but he was not talking. He was not talking on the mic.
Really?
It was awful. So I'd like to invite you to be a part of it.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
I don't have a date yet.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't pay.
That's fine.
But it should be pretty cool. And in fact, one friend of mine, I've asked some really smart industry friends of mine, hoping they would dissuade me. And they were all like, that's a great idea. I haven't heard it. I'm like, oh, damn it. Because if it's drizzly and cloudy, I will be in Kenya and completely take my name off of the thing.
No, that's fun. I love podcasting. It's so much
Clearly.
fun, right? It's I do a second one on the same feed. I used to do one with my buddies called Three Different Dads. Like, I have all these things, and it's so much fun. So I would love to be a part of that. I think it'd be awesome.
You are invited. I don't have further details yet, but I'm sure your mom will be happy to have you out of her basement.
I think so.
Do you want to bring this table, or do you want to bring your mom there to yell at you just in case, so it gives you the feel? Because one of the things I was listening for to discern as I was scouting podcasts is, this is a nice podcast, but you're going to be on stage, like, people will be watching, so I need to hear that you have some presence, and you do, but you might need your mom's presence to be better. I don't know.
Maybe we'll see. Well, I think it helped that I'm very much okay on stage. I usually do stand-up comedy too, so that helps a little bit there. But I don't know. Maybe we can have someone throwing sandals at me, chocolates from the back.
Do they do that?
My mom did.
Okay.
She always used to do this thing where when she was driving, she'd reach her hand back and pinch us when we were being bad.
Right. I will turn this car around.
Yeah.
And bless that woman for staying sober while you're down here doing what you're doing.
Well, thanks again for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for downloading this episode of the Nerdball Podcast. If you want to reach out or be on the show, just search The Nerdball Podcast on any social media. If you want to email us, that is thenerdballpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, there's always YouTube, so you can go on there, subscribe to the Nerdball Podcast, and watch the podcast every week. As always, thanks to Real JP Multimedia, Cuddlefish Graphics, Big Daddy Graphics, and Perrysburg Junior High STEM Lab for always supporting the podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.